My name is Jacob Miller, and I work as a security analyst in downtown Chicago. Every night after 11, I have only one thought in my mind: getting home as fast as possible. There is a shortcut I discovered months ago, a path that cuts through an abandoned subway tunnel under the old Grand Avenue Bridge. Everyone warns me never to go there at night, but the idea of saving 18 minutes of my life feels too tempting. The tunnel is dark and damp. The walls are covered in decades of graffiti and peeling paint. The smell of mold is constant. The first night I tried it, I laughed at my own nerves. The flickering lights of the city behind me faded, and I was swallowed by shadows. My footsteps echoed off the concrete walls, loud and hollow. I told myself it was just my imagination when I heard whispers or soft scraping sounds somewhere ahead. But curiosity drove me forward. About halfway through, I noticed a figure standing still in the middle of the tunnel. I froze. My heart thudded so loudly I could hear it in my ears. It was a man, wearing a dark trench coat and a wide-brimmed hat. I could not see his face. I called out, but my voice sounded wrong, hollow, as if the tunnel swallowed it before it left my throat. The figure did not move. I took a step closer, and I felt a chill crawl up my spine, like icy fingers tracing my back. Then he vanished. I blinked, and he was gone. I laughed shakily at myself, thinking maybe it was a trick of the shadows. But then I saw it. Footprints. They were wet, leading toward me, but I had not seen any rain or water in the tunnel. I turned around. The tunnel was empty behind me. I wanted to run, but my legs would not obey. I was frozen, staring at the footprints advancing slowly, as if the person had never left. I remember thinking maybe this was just a prank. Someone who knew I walked this tunnel every night, but deep down, I knew no one could move like that, silently, without making a sound. My instincts screamed at me to turn back, but my pride and fear of wasting those 18 minutes pushed me forward. That night, I saw things I cannot explain. Shadows moving faster than my eyes could follow, whispering voices calling my name, laughter echoing from corners of the tunnel that should have been empty. I felt hands brush my shoulder, but every time I spun around, there was nothing. When I finally emerged on the other side and saw the warm yellow glow of my apartment window, I thought I was safe, but I was wrong. Something had followed me, and I would not be able to escape it. The next night, I could not stay away. I told myself it was curiosity, or maybe a foolish desire to prove that nothing could touch me in that tunnel. I left the office later than usual, and the streets of Chicago were silent, empty, like the city itself was holding its breath. The shortcut called to me, and despite every warning, I turned down Grand Avenue toward the old bridge. The moment I stepped into the tunnel, the temperature dropped. My breath formed mist in the dim light. I heard it immediately, the whispering again, soft at first, almost polite, then louder, demanding. My name, Jacob, repeated over and over, echoing in the hollow walls, twisting around me, coming from everywhere and nowhere. I froze, my feet glued to the wet concrete. Then I saw him again, the figure in the trench coat. He was closer this time, but still faceless, a shadow with movement that did not match the rhythm of my world. I tried to speak, but my voice cracked. I wanted to run, but it was as if the tunnel itself resisted me, the darkness thickening, pulling me in. I could hear a scraping sound, metal on concrete, moving faster than anything human should. A hand brushed my shoulder. I screamed, spinning around, but the tunnel was empty. Only the footprints remained, but they were different. They were deep now, as if something heavy was pressing into the floor, following me perfectly, step for step. I started running, heart pounding, echoing through the empty corridors, the shadows stretching and reaching for me. Then I saw her, a woman, pale and soaked with grime, floating above the ground, her eyes black voids, mouth opening wider than any human jaw could stretch. She whispered my fears, my failures, my secrets that no one else knew. Her voice was velvet and acid at the same time. I stumbled backward, hitting the wall, feeling her presence close, unbearable, surrounding me. I tripped over something soft and warm on the ground. Looking down, I saw faces, dozens of faces pressed into the concrete, screaming silently, there, mouths moving, eyes wide with terror, staring at me. The smell of decay, of rot, and old blood filled the tunnel. My mind wanted to break, to shut down, but I forced myself to run, to reach the faint glow of the exit. The closer I got, the more the tunnel seemed to stretch. What should have been only a few minutes felt like hours. The whispers became screams. The shadows moved faster than I could run, clawing at my legs, whispering promises of pain, of death. Just when I thought I could not go on, I saw the lights of my apartment. A moment of hope, relief. But then I heard it behind me, a deep, guttural laugh. Not human, not alive, and I realized something was waiting for me outside, in the light, where I thought I would be safe. When I finally burst into the street, gasping, shaking, the shadows seemed to vanish. The tunnel behind me was silent, empty. The city was calm. The glow of my apartment window was warm and inviting. I thought I was safe, but the whisper followed me, faint but unmistakable. Jacob, Jacob, always coming, always waiting, always watching. I locked the door, tried to sleep, but the shadows of that tunnel followed me into my dreams, moving, whispering, always whispering. I knew, deep in my soul, that whatever waits in that tunnel would never let me go. I could not stop thinking about the tunnel. Every sound in my apartment, every creak of the old pipes, felt like the whispering voices returning. I tried to avoid the shortcut, but work kept me late again. I told myself I would take the long route, but as soon as I reached Grand Avenue, my legs moved on their own. My pride, my fear of wasting time, pushed me forward. The tunnel welcomed me with its cold, damp air. Shadows stretched along the walls, moving even though nothing should have been there. I felt the presence immediately, heavier than before, pressing down on my chest. The whispers were louder, sharper, almost angry now. Jacob, Jacob, Jacob. They were calling me like a predator stalking prey. Halfway through, I saw them, dozens of figures. Pale, twisted, their eyes hollow, their mouths opening, impossibly wide. They floated above the floor, moving closer with each heartbeat. I stumbled backward, tripping over the footprints that were no longer human. They glowed faintly, as if guiding me deeper into the tunnel. I realized then that the tunnel was alive, feeding on fear, bending reality to trap me. I turned to run, but the exit was gone. The faint glow of my apartment, the comfort of the street outside, vanished. The walls shifted, stretching farther than they should, twisting around me. I could hear breathing behind me, slow, deliberate, echoing off the tunnel walls, and I knew it was not human. Something had been following me all along, waiting for me to return. A hand, cold and wet, grabbed my shoulder. I screamed, spinning, and found myself staring into a mirror that appeared out of nowhere. My reflection was wrong. My eyes were black. My mouth stretched in a scream that I could not make. My reflection moved independently, smiling as if mocking me. I tried to tear my eyes away, but I was rooted to the spot, unable to escape the horror I had become part of. Then the whispers changed. They were no longer calling my name. They were mocking me, telling me I could never leave, telling me that every shortcut, every corner of the city had been waiting for me. I realized with terror that the tunnel was not just a place. It was a living trap, a predator that had been following me even when I thought I was safe. I ran blindly, crashing into walls, tripping over faces pressed into the floor. There, silent screams filling my ears. I saw flashes of the figures from before, hovering just out of reach, moving impossibly fast, stretching like shadows in the firelight. The tunnel seemed endless, a maze that shifted as I ran, always keeping me in its grasp. Finally, I saw light, real light. I surged toward it, my lungs burning, my heart threatening to explode. I emerged into the street, collapsing onto the pavement, gasping for air. The city was calm, as if nothing had happened, but the feeling remained, a weight in my chest, a shadow at the edge of my vision. When I looked back at the tunnel, I saw a face staring at me from the darkness. A pale woman, her eyes black voids, her mouth opening impossibly wide, smiling. And then the whispers returned, soft and intimate, right into my ear. "Jacob, you cannot leave. Jacob, we are waiting. Jacob, always." That night, I did not sleep. The shadows followed me even into my apartment. Every corner, every mirror, every darkened hallway became part of the tunnel. I realized then that I had crossed a line, that the tunnel had marked me. It would not let me go, not ever. I thought leaving the tunnel would save me. I thought the streetlights, the familiar sidewalks of Chicago, and the warmth of my apartment would protect me. I was wrong. The morning after that night, I noticed shadows moving in ways they should not. They clung to the walls of buildings, stretching impossibly long, following me as I walked to work. People passed by, oblivious, but I could feel the weight of unseen eyes on my back. Every step made the air feel thicker, heavier. The city that had always been alive with energy now seemed to breathe in my fear. I tried to ignore it, telling myself I was imagining things, that the tunnel had left me shaken but not cursed. But at work, in the glow of fluorescent lights, I saw movement in the corners of the office. Figures, pale and silent, drifted past cubicles, disappearing whenever I turned my head. My heart raced, my palms sweat. No one else noticed. That night, I could not avoid it. I left the office at my usual hour, and the thought of the long route terrified me. My feet carried me instinctively to the tunnel. As soon as I stepped inside, the air changed. It was thicker than ever, smelling of mold, decay, and something metallic, like blood. The whispers returned immediately, louder, angrier, more personal. "Jacob, Jacob, Jacob." They were not just calling me, they were hunting me. Halfway through, the walls of the tunnel shifted in ways that made my stomach turn. Shadows twisted into grotesque shapes, reaching for me, whispering secrets I had never shared with anyone. I ran, tripping over footprints that glowed faintly in the darkness. Faces pressed into the concrete floor, twisted to look at me, their silent screams echoing through the tunnel. Then I saw them outside the tunnel, waiting for me on the streets of Chicago. Figures floating just above the pavement, their eyes hollow, their mouths stretched wide. I could hear the whispers even there, in the open air. "Jacob, Jacob, we are waiting." I ran blindly, dodging traffic, but they were everywhere. The city itself seemed to warp, twisting the familiar streets into a maze, a continuation of the tunnel. I reached my apartment, locking the door behind me, but the shadows had followed. They appeared in mirrors, darkening the glass until only void stared back at me. I tried to sleep, but the whispers seeped into my dreams, turning them into a nightmare I could not wake from. The tunnel had left its mark, and now it was feeding on every fear I had, every thought, every breath. The worst part was knowing that it had not even begun to claim me fully. I was still alive, still walking, still breathing, but the tunnel, the shadows, the whispers, they were inside me now. Always waiting, always watching, always hungry. And that night, I knew one terrible truth. No matter how far I ran, no matter how bright the city lights, the tunnel would never let me go. I could not stay trapped in fear any longer. I had to understand the tunnel, to find a way to stop it from following me. I scoured old newspapers, city records, and police reports. The Grand Avenue Bridge Tunnel had a history. Decades ago, there were disappearances, unreported deaths, and stories of workers vanishing without a trace. The city had buried the truth, but the shadows remembered. That night, I prepared myself. I brought a flashlight, pepper spray, and my phone. I told myself I would walk straight through, confront whatever haunted the tunnel, and end this nightmare. The moment I entered, the air grew cold, thicker, almost solid. Whispers crawled along the walls, louder than ever. Jacob, Jacob, Jacob. They knew my thoughts, my fears. I saw the figures almost immediately. Pale faces with hollow eyes floated along the walls, moving unnaturally fast, twisting and stretching. Their mouths opened impossibly wide, screaming my sins, my failures, secrets no one else knew. I shouted, demanding they leave me alone. My voice echoed weakly. A figure in a trench coat appeared again, closer than ever. Its presence pressed into my chest, and I realized it was not just a shadow, it was alive, conscious, feeding on me. I swung my flashlight at it, but the light passed through like smoke. It laughed, deep and guttural, vibrating through my bones. Then the floor shifted. Faces, hundreds of them, erupted from the concrete like rising bodies, their mouths opening in silent screams. I stumbled backward, the flashlight slipping from my hands. Shadows reached for me, cold, wet, clawing at my clothes, my skin. I screamed, feeling them wrap around my limbs. I tried to run, but the tunnel stretched endlessly ahead. Every exit I saw vanished, replaced by more darkness, more figures. I realized then the terrible truth. The tunnel did not want me to leave. It wanted me to become part of it, like the others. I felt my limbs growing heavier, my vision blurring. The whispers intensified, feeding on my fear. Jacob, 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 you cannot leave. Jacob, we are waiting. Jacob, always. In a desperate act, I threw myself toward a faint glow ahead. Faces pressed into the floor, clawed at me, dragging me down. The figure in the trench coat reached out, impossibly fast. My fingers grazed the light, my apartment window shimmering through the darkness like a promise. I tumbled out of the tunnel, collapsing onto the wet pavement outside. I gasped for air, drenched in sweat. The city was quiet, deceptively calm. I looked back. The tunnel mouth was empty, dark, silent, but I knew better. It had let me go, for now, and I knew it would wait, watching, always. That night, I did not sleep. Every shadow in my apartment seemed alive, stretching toward me. Every whisper of wind carried a voice calling my name. I understood finally running would not save me. I had to face it, understand it, or the tunnel would claim me entirely. I knew I could not run anymore. The tunnel was no longer just beneath the city. It followed me everywhere, in every shadow, every mirror, every corner of my apartment. I had to fight it. Even if I did not fully understand what it was, I returned to the tunnel during the night, armed with salt, candles, and an old journal I found in the city archives. The journal described rituals, strange symbols carved into the concrete decades ago by workers who claimed the tunnel was alive. Some believed the tunnel fed on fear, some said it trapped souls, and some whispered it could cross the boundary between the living and the dead. As I stepped inside, the air grew colder, heavier, almost solid around me. Shadows moved before I could see them, whispering my name with voices that cut through my mind. Jacob, Jacob, Jacob. I lit the candles, placing them in a circle. I sprinkled salt along the perimeter, hoping the old symbols in the journal would work. The moment I completed the circle, the shadows surged. Figures appeared from the walls, twisting and stretching. Faces I recognized from the floor pressed in the concrete, screaming silently. They floated toward me, their hollow eyes fixed. The figure in the trench coat appeared at the center, staring at me with impossible blackness, where its face should be. I started reading from the journal, my voice shaking. The whispers rose into shrill screams. The air pressed down harder, my chest burning. The candles flickered violently, almost snuffed out by unseen hands. faces pressed into the walls, their mouths opening wider than physically possible, screaming secrets I had never spoken. Then something changed. The ground beneath me cracked. Dark hands emerged from the cracks, clawing toward me. The shadows reached inside my circle, trying to touch me. I threw salt at them, screaming. The figure in the trench coat lunged, passing through the circle, its form shifting, growing, folding like smoke. The tunnel itself seemed to pulse. The walls twisted, lengthened, trapping me inside an endless nightmare. The whispers became a deafening roar. Jacob, Jacob, we are coming. Jacob, you cannot escape. Jacob, always. I felt my strength draining, my body weakening, as if the tunnel was pulling at my soul. But then, a spark. A sudden flash of light from the candles. I shouted the final words from the journal. The shadows recoiled, screeching, twisting in agony. The figure in the trench coat screamed, a sound so deep it rattled my bones. For a moment, the tunnel seemed to shrink, the walls straightening. I ran faster than I ever had, the air still thick but no longer pressing me down. The exit appeared ahead, glowing faintly. I tumbled onto the street, gasping for breath. The city was quiet. The tunnel mouth behind me was still, but I knew it was not gone. It had been held back, momentarily, but it was alive, patient, and relentless. And I understood now that the fight was only beginning. I thought I had survived. I thought the ritual, the candles, the salt, had pushed it back. But the tunnel's presence had followed me, lingering in the corners of my vision, in every shadow, every reflection. My sleep was gone, replaced by nightmares where the walls of the tunnel grew inside my mind, twisting and pressing, whispering my name. Then the pain began. At first, small, my shoulders ached, my chest tightened, but it grew rapidly. My arms trembled as if something was gripping my bones. I looked in the mirror and froze. Dark veins, like shadows under my skin, pulsed and spread. My eyes flickered black for a moment. I screamed, and the shadows in the corners of my apartment twitched, in response, as if feeding on my fear and pain. I could hear the tunnel's voice now, inside my head. Jacob, Jacob, you belong to us. Jacob, always. Jacob, forever. It was not outside. It was in me. Every heartbeat, every breath, every thought carried the whispers. The shadows no longer stayed in the tunnel. They had followed me into my body, my mind, twisting reality around me. I could not escape. Walking down the streets of Chicago, shadows reached from alleyways, pressing against my legs, wrapping around me. People passed by, oblivious, but I felt the cold brush of unseen hands. At work, computers glitched, lights flickered, and for brief, terrifying moments, the figures from the tunnel appeared behind coworkers, reaching, whispering, just out of reach. One night, I was trapped in the apartment, unable to sleep, when the figure in the trench coat appeared inside. Not in the shadows, not behind a wall, but fully there, as if it had grown out of the darkness itself. Its black void eyes stared into mine. My pulse stopped. It reached for my face, and I felt an icy coldness invade my skull. A whisper drilled into my mind, showing me memories I did not remember, fears I did not know I had. I screamed and banged against the walls, trying to break free, but the apartment seemed to twist around me. The shadows formed a shape, a mass of twisting faces, mouths screaming in unison, and then they all focused on me. I felt my sanity slip, as if I were dissolving into the darkness, becoming part of it, part of the tunnel, part of everything it had ever consumed. When dawn came, I collapsed in the living room, covered in sweat, trembling, my skin crawling with invisible fingers. The city outside was calm, but I knew it was a lie. The tunnel had marked me. It had entered me. It was not just beneath Chicago anymore. It was inside me, and I understood the truth I had been avoiding. No candle, no ritual, no salt, no escape would ever save me. I had become part of its world, and its world would never let me go. I realized I could not face the tunnel blindly anymore. It was no longer just a place. It was a predator, patient, intelligent, feeding on my fear. I needed to understand it, to know its origin, or I would be lost entirely. I spent days in the city archives, digging through old police records, construction reports, and newspapers. The tunnel under Grand Avenue Bridge was built in the 1920s, a project marked by accidents and unexplained disappearances. Workers vanished, sometimes leaving behind only their tools or faint traces of blood. Some were found years later, bodies, twisted mouths open in silent screams. Some were never found at all. There were whispers in old journals about rituals performed in the tunnel. Construction crews had carved symbols into the walls, chanting as they worked. They believed the tunnel had a consciousness, feeding on fear, trapping souls, and reaching beyond the physical world. One line in a journal sent chills down my spine. Whoever enters after dark does not just walk the tunnel, they enter the tunnel itself, becoming part of its hunger. That night, I returned. I had prepared like never before, armed with protective symbols drawn in chalk, salt, candles, and an old talisman I had discovered in the archives. The tunnel was waiting, colder, darker, alive in a way that pressed against my mind before I even stepped inside. The whispers began immediately, louder, sharper, cutting into my skull. Jacob, 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 always, always, always. Shadows moved along the walls, twisting and stretching impossibly. Faces appeared from the concrete, mouths opening wider than any human mouth could, screaming my fears. I began chanting from the journal, drawing the symbols in a large circle. The shadows recoiled briefly, shrieking, but then surged back, faster, stronger. The figure in the trench coat appeared again, closer than ever, stretching across the tunnel like smoke. Black void eyes fixed on me. I threw salt and shouted, trying to enforce the boundaries of my circle, but it was not enough. The tunnel itself pulsed, its walls twisting and stretching, the floor breaking beneath me. Hands, cold and wet, shot up from the cracks, clawing at my legs, pulling me toward the abyss. The whispers became deafening, a chorus of voices, chanting, laughing, mocking, calling, Jacob, you cannot leave. Jacob, you belong to us. I remembered the talisman. Clutching it, I screamed its inscription, hoping it would anchor me to the real world. For a moment, everything stopped. The shadows froze mid-motion, the whispers ceased, the tunnel held its breath. I ran, fueled by desperation, crashing past. Faces pressed into the floor. The figure in the trench coat reaching for me. I burst out into the street, falling to my knees, gasping, drenched in sweat. The city was calm, indifferent, as if nothing had happened. But I knew better. The tunnel had not been defeated. It had been delayed, restrained, but it was alive, patient, and it was coming for me. And now I understood the terrible reality. It was no longer just beneath Chicago. It was inside me. It had marked me, and I was its prey forever. I could no longer tell where the tunnel ended and the city began. Every shadow on the street, every alleyway, every flicker of a streetlight carried it. Jacob, 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 it whispered in my mind constantly. The mark inside me pulsed with every heartbeat, every breath, reminding me that I was already part of its world. Walking home one night, I saw them everywhere. Figures floated above the sidewalks, pale faces twisted with impossible anguish, mouths opening wider than any human jaw, screaming silently. Their eyes followed me, and when I looked away, I could feel them behind me, touching me, whispering secrets only I could hear. I tried to run, but the city itself had become the tunnel. Streets twisted and stretched, alleys shifted, buildings loomed impossibly close. I felt the hands again, clawing through the concrete beneath my feet, reaching into my legs, trying to pull me down. The air pressed against me, thick, cold, alive. Inside my apartment, there was no refuge. Mirrors darkened, reflections moving independently, faces pressed against the glass, mouths opening in silent screams, whispering my fears, my failures, my sins. Shadows formed masked shapes, twisting and writhing, waiting for me to fall asleep so they could consume me. One night, the figure in the trench coat appeared fully, standing in my living room. Not a shadow, not a trick of light, it was real, solid, its black void eyes fixed on mine, its presence pressed against my chest, stealing my breath. It whispered directly into my mind, "Jacob, you belong to us, forever, always, no escape." I screamed, but the sound barely left my throat, absorbed by the darkness around me. The worst moment came when I saw the faces in the street. They were not just in the shadows, they were in the people, in the reflections, in the cars, pale, twisted, screaming, reaching for me, mocking me. I tried to move, to hide, to fight, but every step I took led me deeper into their trap. The city had become a labyrinth of horror, and I was the prey. I understood then that the tunnel was not just a place. It was a living predator, patient, intelligent, feeding on fear, and it had already won. I was part of it now, inside and out. The shadows, the whispers, the twisted faces, they were mine, and I was theirs. I could feel the darkness growing inside me, stretching, expanding, waiting for the moment it could fully claim me. There was no escape. There would be no relief. Only the tunnel. Always. Forever. Jacob, you belong to us. Always. I had run. I had fought. I had tried every ritual, every precaution, every protective measure I could find. Nothing worked. The tunnel was not a place. It was alive, patient, and it had marked me. I had become part of it, and now there was no returning. That night, I entered the tunnel one last time, not to escape, not to fight, but to face the truth. The darkness greeted me like an old friend, thick and suffocating, whispering my name endlessly. Jacob, 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 always, always, always. I walked forward, each step heavier than the last, the shadows pressing into my skin, writhing and reaching. The walls twisted, folding into themselves, stretching into infinity. Faces emerged from the concrete, screaming, laughing, weeping. The figure in the trench coat was there, larger than ever, its black void eyes staring directly into mine. I realized then the terrible truth. The tunnel did not just want to consume me. It wanted me to become it, to feed it, to join the countless others it had claimed over decades. I felt my body changing, limbs heavy, senses distorted. The whispers invaded my mind, showing memories that were not mine, fears and sins of those that had taken before me. I struggled, tried to fight, but my strength was nothing. I was melting into the darkness, becoming part of the tunnel's hunger. The light at the end of the tunnel flickered. I saw my apartment, my city, my life, shimmering like a fragile dream. I reached for it, desperate. But the figure in the trench coat moved faster than thought, its shadow stretching across the tunnel, engulfing the light. Jacob, you cannot leave, it whispered, a sound that split my soul. I screamed. My body dissolved into the darkness. I became the whispers, the shadows, the faces pressed into the walls, the hands clawing from the floor. I was the tunnel now, patient, eternal, waiting for the next soul who dared to enter. Outside, the city continued, oblivious. The streetlights flickered. A lone pedestrian passed by the Grand Avenue Bridge, glancing at the dark mouth of the tunnel. He hesitated, then walked away. The tunnel waited, silent, hungry, alive, and inside, I remained. Jacob, always. Jacob, forever. The tunnel never forgets, and it never releases what it takes.